On this episode of In the Gun, we put a bow on spring ball and we talk about everything we saw at Mountaineer Field on Saturday. All that and more on this episode of ITG.
Caution, this podcast contains bad jokes, optimism, and a healthy disdain for Pat Narduzzi. Watching it may increase your actual knowledge of actual football.
ITG.
All the pieces are in place for us to have a chance to win it all.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
There's Owen Schmitt in the building.
Like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines.
Sure, where's he in? He in here, Jed Drenning?
I'm not much of an athlete.
The thing that's non-negotiable is playing hard and playing tough.
And Wesley, Valen, Uhler. You are in the gun.
Once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
In the Gun, episode 335 of your new favorite WVU football podcast. I am Wes Uhler, as always, flanked by the best teammates in the business. We've got the co-host, the producer, Mr. Do-It-All, Schuyler Callihan, and, of course, the great signal caller himself, now officially back on Twitter and rocking and rolling, Jed Drenning. And you already know we have our village that makes this all possible. A big thank you to Toothman Ford, JR, all the good people there at Team Toothman. We all know cars cost less in Grafton. Shout out to Rick Lewis and the good people at Fortis for roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed. You got to visit fortis.us.com. And to our friends of the show, friends in real life, the good folks at Johnston Equipment. Make sure you are visiting them, Route 33, between Weston and Buchanan. You can also always visit them online. Johnston, that's with a T, JohnstonEQ.com. And Jed, Schuyler, we already know this is kind of, this is the put the bow on spring ball, rounding out another year of spring ball 2026 edition. For the Mountaineers and for Rich Rodriguez. We're going to get into some observations and some thoughts, of course, on the other side when we kind of have our main segment. But Jed, first, just a reminder of some of the things that we kind of set the scene, set the stage for the spring game with last week.
And let's start with this, Wes. Shout out. Speaking of me regaining access to my Twitter account, my X account, shout out to our listeners, our viewers. Enough of you apparently flagged the account that did help get it suspended. And I consider this, in retrospect, one of the greatest achievements of my life, regaining access to that account. It only took close to a month. And there were times it looked very grim, especially when they changed the handle from the signal caller to some weird version of my name.
You were deep in Bitcoin,
my buddy told me, Jed, if you were to put your experience, because I communicated with X 3 times a day for almost a month. And he said, if you were to put all this in a PDF and sell it for $9.95, you might retire. Just giving people advice as to what to do when this happened. But knock on wood, we have it back. The Nigerian prince has been defeated for the time being.
Schuyler, you know what we should have done is when the Nigerian prince changed Jed's handle, you and I should have occupied the signal caller handle.
Yes,
we should have either changed one of ours or we should have just made a burner account, and then we could have charged Jed like it was a .com URL, like it was a domain name, and we could have charged Jed. You want the signal caller handle back? It's going to cost you $500. I don't know what to tell you. It's in high demand.
I'm still wondering if at some point one of my buddies is going to step forward and I find out it was them and it wasn't some hacker from Nigeria. But none of my buddies are smart enough. So I'm not worried about that, right? So back to what we discussed last week about the spring game. We got together and we talked about some of the things we hoped to see. So let's bullet point that, give a quick rendition as to whether or not we think we saw it. And then we're going to jump to one other topic, and in the body of the show, we'll flesh the game out more thoroughly. On the offensive side, we talked about wanting to see offensive flow and rhythm, the things that help us get in position to set up tempo, which is the jet fuel for Coach Rod's offense. I mean, from the very outset of the game, when Scotty Fox led that unit down the field for the score, it was apparent that there was a flow, there was a rhythm. You could utilize some tempo. That was there throughout the course of the game. We'll talk more about that. We wondered if we would see some push by the offensive line. Fortunately, we did. We saw some push by the offensive line, several different cats getting involved too. It was even fun to see. I mean, we're already starting to see double teams and zone concepts effectively run where one of them disengages and seals off the back, or the type of things that usually take quite a few reps working together. You're already starting to see some of that crystallize with this group. I mean, we got 8 to 10 guys, I think, up front that can help us at the point of attack. So, yes, we did see some push by the offensive line. Here's the funny one. Which quarterback will benefit from shedding the black shirt? Because I knew there was the possibility, at least, that Scotty and for the first time, Mike Hawkins would shed the shirt. We've seen everybody else without the two-hand touch shirt. And as it turned out, cooler heads and wiser heads prevailed, and Rich kept the black shirts on them, which is why the other quarterbacks suddenly seem a little more athletic because they're allowed to make plays with their legs. But you could still see some of that out of Scotty and out of Michael Hawkins. We wanted to see also, we know that established and entrenched as RB1 is Cam Cook. Who is going to be the 2, the 3, and the 4? What kind of mix do we have there? I think we got some answers, and we're going to talk about that from some of what we saw of those behind Cam. Now, it wasn't a polished game for the time capsule, which you wouldn't expect in the spring. I mean, we had some exchanges, center quarterback exchange issues. One of those led to the defensive touchdown. But by and large, I thought there was a lot to build on and a lot of very coachable moments in the tape that those guys put together. On the defensive side, we said we wanted to see solid communication. We expected things to be relatively vanilla with what Rich was really forcing Zach Alley to do, reel it back in, let him play fast, see what kind of playmakers you do have. And we wanted to see hats to the ball. I saw several examples, sideline to sideline, hats to the ball, those guys hustling, those guys fighting. I saw exactly what I would hope to see in terms of the backers directing traffic, getting people aligned, communicating very crisply. So, yes, we saw that. On the defensive line, we wanted to see what would come of not just the new faces and the new guys in the mix, but also some of the returning guys that we believe have taken a step. Now, we saw some of that. I mean, I don't know if we saw any overwhelming performances, but we did see some things we liked out of certain guys, and we will talk about that. Jameer Latimer, we anticipate him being a dog on this defense. Are there other dogs? Again, maybe the framework of a game like this, that's a tall ask. But I did see spurts, I did see flashes, I did see moments from some other guys that we'll talk about as dog candidates. There were a few missed tackles, same thing on the defensive side of the football. It wasn't a flawless, perfect performance, nor would you expect one for a team that was, by and large, thrust together 4 months ago, 4.5, 5 months ago. So that's what we saw on both sides of the ball in terms of what we were looking for, what we were hoping to see. But we're going to flesh that out and get very specific after the break, guys.
That we will. We certainly will. And that is going to be kind of the main body of the show today. Jed, anything else you wanted to hit on? Did you want to talk about the Tommy Nicolich Award before we go to break here, correct?
I sure do. That's an award that has always had special meaning to this program. I think maybe with Rich, it even more so as a guy. Rich is a guy who played with Tommy Nicolich and knew him well, knew his history. Remember when he suffered through what he suffered through. The award was born in 1991. The first winner, I actually played with the first winner, Keith Taparowski. I completed a pass to him in the spring game, actually. Tap was a great guy, hard-nosed tailback, about all the right stuff, a walk-on from Massachusetts. And when you look at the list of guys that have been assembled, I mean, it is terrific company. Through the years, every one of these guys since 1991 has been about all the right stuff, including the most recent winner, Cyrus Straw, of course, a product of Parkersburg South. Started his career at Youngstown State before transferring into West Virginia, made some plays in the spring game. He's had a terrific spring. And what I like about Cyrus is every time you give one of the other receivers in that room an opportunity to talk about their teammates, Cyrus is one of the first names they mention. But his name is now right there beside guys like you go back to Robbie Keys. I coached with Robbie Keys. He's a former defensive back from the early to mid 90s with Coach Nealon. We were at Glenville together on staff with Coach Trickett. He's now the special teams coach at Ohio State, Robbie is. He has a national championship ring, so he's a former winner of the Tommy Nicolich Award. John Pennington, former winner. Tim Lindsay, right there in Owen's heyday, former winner. Justin Arndt, linebacker we all remember and loved a handful of years ago. Osman Kamara, he's a former winner. Nick Malone. I mean, when I look at this list of guys as I was going back through it, it's like, I don't have a daughter, but if I had a daughter, these are the types of guys I would want my daughter to date or marry. that's what it is. I mean, these are guys that are all about the right stuff, the good stuff, the best stuff, terrific teammates. And as Rich has said, that's what Tommy Nicolich was known for, was being an absolutely terrific teammate. Cyrus Traw certainly is. So hats off to him for not winning this award, but for earning this award. So that's always a cool little conversation to have each year as spring ball wraps up. Who is going to earn that award is so meaningful within the confines and the walls of that facility.
Pretty cool. And Jed, I like your kind of personal connection there and just laying out what we all know that means to Rich Rodriguez and to kind of the history of the program. And very, very cool, very kind of time-honored tradition there. And I'm glad you took a couple minutes to explain it to everybody and lay it out there. Let's get to our break, and we will talk spring ball, the spring game, the spring festival, and everything that happened on Saturday as that concluded the spring practice season for our Mountaineers. We'll do all that and more when we return on the other side. You are in the gun.
When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnson Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready.
Low-rate financing available on select Coyote models.
Johnson Equipment, farming made easy.
For nearly 20 years, Fortis has been the nation's leader in providing guaranteed roof performance programs for commercial buildings. Fortis offers roof performance solutions that feature extensive initial and ongoing reconditioning for commercial buildings as an alternative to traditional replacement, with long-term performance guarantees that are backed by global leader Lloyd's of London. Fortis offers a comprehensive range of roof performance management programs that provide financial security, extend the life of our customers' roofs, and make a significant impact on ROI. Fortis is currently improving performance and increasing ROI for customers at more than 4,800 locations, with more than 140 million square feet protected, including many Fortune 500 companies that have turned to Fortis to save money, gain financial certainty, and extend the life of their existing roofs. Fortis has helped customers save more than $520 million in capital roof replacement costs for an average ROI of over 250%. To learn more, visit fortis.us.com. Fortis, roof performance and financial certainty guaranteed.
Nobody supports the blue and gold Mountaineers like Toothman Ford. With over 20 NIL deals and counting, Toothman Ford continues to rally behind our student athletes. And it's time we rally and support the dealer that supports the Mountaineers. Not only does Toothman Ford offer the best prices in the state on pre-owned, their never over MSRP campaign on new Fords guaranteed to save you thousands. Drive with pride all season long, knowing you're supporting the dealer that fuels our Mountaineers. Toothman Ford, where cars cost less, in Grafton and at toothmanford.com.
You're listening to Mountaineer Football Talk.
ITG. When the sun's just rising and the work won't wait, you need the equipment that works just as hard as you do. Johnson Equipment delivers power, performance, and reliability day in, day out. Whether you're plowing fields, hauling loads, or planting the future, our tractors are built to take it and then some. Strong, reliable, ready.
Low-rate financing available on select Coyote models.
Johnson Equipment, farming made easy.
Back in the gun here as we roll along on this episode of ITG, a little spring ball recap as the spring game, the spring festival, and spring practice now in the books for Rich Rodriguez and your Mountaineers. Jed, as we kind of mentioned in the preview episode, it was, for the second straight year in a row, a cast of dozens of new faces and names for the Mountaineers. which I guess kind of works both ways. You don't get the same spring game of the past where you remember guys' names and you're starting to see them grow and develop and carve out a better role for themselves in the team. But at the same time, I think now the spring game is kind of a good crash course of, okay, here's our roster, here's the new names, here's the new faces, here's what we can expect upcoming into, of course, the summer and the start of the regular season.
I think I'd be remiss, guys, if I didn't preface this by talking about the fans, the turnout, the environment. There were a lot of recruits on hand. I always like to tell fans, you really, really do make a difference. Wyatt Brown, the quarterback that will be in camp, well, he'll be on campus, I should say, next month. And part of things, he'll start OTAs with the team. He's from California. Wyatt and his dad, I loved his film, by the way, loved Wyatt Brown's film. But him and his dad were in town, and I spent quite a bit of time leading up to the game with them on the sidelines, and they just kept going back to how impressed they were by our fan base. They were at a game. Now, you know, I mentioned this to you guys, and you think back to the Utah game, like I remember the throwback jerseys, I remember the blowout. I don't remember a great environment for a Mountaineer game. Those guys were moved by that. I'm telling you, what fans do matters. They recognize that as pretty cool. They love the environment for the spring game on Saturday. So those are the types of things that resonate with players or potential Mountaineers. So,
and Ross Hodge brings some recruits over there too for the spring game.
Say it again, Scott.
And Ross Hodge brings some of his recruits over there too. So
there you go. Burn the candle at both ends, right? So take full advantage of that, because there's times that, nothing's better than taking a batch of football recruits over to watch West Virginia knock off Kansas in the Hope Coliseum. So, that works both ways. I mean, it's just, you get a real sense and a real taste of what, Mountaineer sports are all about and what Mountaineer fans are all about. I mean, I got to spend 20 minutes talking to those guys. Rich came over to talk to them during pregame as well. And, I was just explaining to him, I was like, look, West Virginia follows football through and through. But if you show a pulse and you give this fan base a winner, I told them what the fan base did for the women's basketball team, for the NCAA tournament. And they were really moved and stirred by that. So, guys, gals, if you're listening, what you do matters. When you show up and you cheer, even when we're struggling. I mean, they said that's what impressed them. They recognized that we were struggling. We weren't at our peak. This wasn't the best that Mountaineer football has ever looked. And they said, but despite that, you guys still had that crowd roaring for you, cheering for you. Anybody can do it when you're 10-2, but not anybody can do it when you're 4-8 and getting beat 48-14 by Utah. But they were impressed by it. So it does matter to the people you want it to matter to. Guys, which side of the ball? Maybe defense this time. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball. There's no really rhyme or reason or science to what I'm going through here. Just some high points. Some of them I took while I was there. Some of them I took in watching the tape afterwards. But one of the things I couldn't help but notice, that first snap of the game defensively, Zeke Campbell, of course, the edge rusher that we got from Coastal in the offseason, that was one of the things we definitely wanted to address was, throw mud at that edge rusher wall and hope some of that mud sticks. And we got some nice bodies in those defensive and edge rusher spots. Zeke Campbell is one of them. And I think he's going to be a significant player on this defense for West Virginia. First snap of the game, he wasn't going to get home. We were throwing the football, Scotty Fox was, and he recognized very quickly he wasn't going to get home. He wasn't going to finish the play with a sack, but you can still impact the play. Into the air, his hand went. He forced Scotty. Scotty was getting ready to throw the football, had to pull it back in, yank it, and scramble. The staff, now remember, you've heard Zach Alley talk about this, has been very intentional about coaching batted balls. A lot of good things are downstream defensively of batted balls, potentially turnovers. Once that ball goes into the air and it's tipped, you have no idea what's going to happen. This one wasn't, but it could have been. And I look back to last year, we had double digit, we cracked 10. You want to kind of even climb higher. Texas Tech, the conference champ, was in the 14-15 range. So if we could do that, you got to figure if you're going to tip 14, 15 balls to the line of scrimmage, a couple of those things are going to go into the air, into no man's land, and that could end up in a defensive back's hands, a linebacker's hands. So I'm seeing more and more out of that. I'm conscious of that as I'm watching tape. And I see guys that when they recognize the ball's about to be launched anywhere on the defensive line, even if they're lost and gobbled up by the block, a hand goes up. on the interior of the defensive line if you think or recognize you're on any level within the throwing lane. I saw Ben Cutter taking charge as you hope Ben Cutter would. He was definitely in command out there. I mean, there were certain things from an alignment standpoint. He was directing traffic, moving the defensive line about. He understands as a backer in the Zach Alley scheme where these guys are supposed to be aligned, how the pieces are glued together, and the interconnectivity. That's the beauty of your defensive coordinator coaching that linebacker group. That linebacker group touches both the defensive line and the secondary. So the linebackers understand a little bit of everything the good ones do. And so it was nice to see Ben Cutter playing that role that you hope he does play for us. And that's when he's on the field making a difference, not just in terms of what he's doing after the ball snap, but what he's helping us do from an alignment standpoint before the ball snapped. We talked about hats to the ball. I saw several instances of this. Great pursuit, not just by the entire defense, the second and third level players, the guys who are expected to be in better shape, but the big bodied guys with their hand in the dirt. When you see them chasing the football sideline to sideline, that's usually a pretty strong indicator that your defense is playing hard, playing lights out, going for broke, and not leaving anything on the field. And I saw several examples of that. As we're in this constant pursuit of dogs, all right, potentially. At the safety position, a couple guys that are relatively repping at the same spot. Cameron Reddick continues to be a physical force. He flies downhill fast. He will clog an A-gap before you can blink, and he doesn't hesitate. He sticks his face in the fan. So you got a physical presence from him. And then in Matt Sieg, Tate Boswell busted one onto the perimeter and was in space. And Matt Sieg squared him up and made a heck of a nice tackle in space. So those were some nice plays that I saw from the back end. And linebacker Malachi Hood, I think for this defense to be what it aspires to be, or what we hope it can be, Malachi Hood, the transfer from Illinois, is going to have to be a central part of that. And you saw him a handful of times demonstrate that he really does have a nose for the football, which is what you hope for at that position. He has that ability to kind of wiggle through things, sift through the trash, and make a play. We always talk about talented ball carriers or runners seeing daylight and getting through a crack. Well, the same thing can be said for talented tacklers. I don't think people talk about that enough. Talented tacklers also see daylight, chase the ball through narrow cracks, narrow margins, and you saw him do that even for a TFL in one instance. And that is exactly as I said, once you want out of your linebackers. We've talked on the show a handful of times about how we're excited about the potential of Darius Wiley and what his size can bring at that defensive end spot. It was fun to watch him because you saw some of the good, you saw some of the bad. I mean, he was engaged in some real battles with Kevin Brown, who was playing tackle to his side, a number of times, and even sometimes with the guards on the West Virginia offensive line. And there were some things that Darius Wiley, he lost some of those battles, but there were also some moments where he managed to impact things in a pretty big way. And even in short yardage, when you think of a guy with his frame and his size and his height, you don't necessarily think of pad level or winning leverage at the point of attack, but there were a couple times in short yardage situations against guys that, he's 3 or 4 inches taller than. I saw him demonstrate great pad level, get under them, and actually be disruptive in short yardage situations against the run. So those are just a couple of things I'm going to come up for air here on the defensive side of the football that I noticed. And again, it's kind of in keeping with that list that we went through. Some of the things that we were hoping to see, well, I did see some of those things.
Yeah, Wes, I'll let you kind of take the floor here in a second because you were actually there, at least for a few minutes. I didn't get to see a whole lot of what happened, but I did see some stuff. I agree. I think the physicality, the athleticism is more noticeable with this defense. I don't know how it's all going to come together just yet. We don't know what the two deep's going to look like or anything like that, but I just think you're going to see a different feel to what is out there on the field with this group. And as I said last week, my two areas that I'm kind of looking at is the cornerback room. What happens there? Are you going to find a number one corner? Are you going to find two guys that you can trust to throw out there in man-to-man coverage and press coverage? And can you find guys that can win out there consistently enough? You have the length, you have the size, but are those guys going to be making plays? That's a huge, huge concern for me right now. It's not to say that they're in bad shape. That's a concern. And then secondly is the linebacker play, like Jed just mentioned with Malachi and Ben Cutter. So much of what Zach Alley's defenses have done in the past, his successful ones, all hinge on the play of the linebacker, especially the Mike backer. When his defenses are humming, he's got an absolute dog and absolute leader at that Mike backer spot. If they can get their answers figured out there, which I believe that they can, then they're going to be in pretty decent shape. I mean, from everything I'm hearing, I'm not saying that they're going to be the number one offense in the country, but if they can just field a middle of the road Big 12 defense or better, you're going to have a chance. I really believe that.
Yeah, just piggybacking off what Schuyler said there, I like how you mentioned in the secondary that we have the length and we have the size, because it does appear that way. And guys, I remember we spent some time talking about this. I think it was in like one of our season wrap up videos, back in December or January, whenever we did them, how there were so many times as you could see the defensive backs were in position. They read the play, they read the offense, they did what they were supposed to do. They were just outmanned. They were out physical. They were outsized. They weren't quite as lengthy as you want your defensive backs to be. It's obviously still very early in this process, but it looks like they got that part solved. It looks like they got more of the body types that they need to populate those position rooms. And again, that's something we talked about at the end of the season, how it seemed like the coaching and the mental side was there for these guys. They just weren't quite the exact body type that you needed. Hopefully they, this time, not just right, as Jed always says, locking themselves in the office with a jar of peanut butter to put together a roster like a ransom note, I believe is the line that Jed likes to use. They actually had some time and identified and found the guys that they're looking for, hopefully.
About that. And defensively, here's how I'll close this out. We say it all the time. The days of hoping to hold people consistently, week in, week out, to 275 yards and 13 points. Like I remember in playing for Coach Nealon, when you walk into the team meeting room, there were offensive and defensive goals. And those were kind of the types of things you would see on the defensive goal board, right? You aspired to hold them to under 275. You aspired to hold them to under 14 points, these types of things. And that's just in today's game, that's simply not realistic. The game has changed so much for a host
outside
of
of
reasons
week 2,
we
maybe
discussed. What's that?
Outside of week 2, maybe.
Yeah, and it's just it's changed so much.
UT Martin out of this.
Yeah, come on now. So what you got to do is you got to win situationally if you want to contribute, and that's all about the various ways that you can steal possessions. So first, you got to mitigate damage. You got to win in the red zone. Hold them to threes instead of touchdowns, or even turn them away outright. Whichever. Either way is a win. West Virginia last year was 10th in the Big 12. I don't look to red zone scoring percentage. You guys know me well enough to recognize that. I look to red zone touchdown percentage. Coach Wallace and I talk about this all the time. You assume the field goal. So touchdowns, that's what wins championships. West Virginia allowed a touchdown on 58% of its red zone trips defensively. Again, that's 10th in the Big 12. That's not good enough. We need to improve. We need to cut into that number. We need to climb starting into the top half of the league and maybe even work your way to the top 5, top 6, where you can start. I mean, think about that. Every time you do what we just said and deny a possession from the end zone, you've saved at least 4 points, maybe more. Those things add up like crazy over the arc of a 12-game season. So that's number one. Number two, West Virginia forced 20 turnovers. We managed to at least get to 20, which is the most we've had since 2018. But that's not championship level turnover rate. And Zach Alley would be the first one to tell you that. His defense is predicated on forcing turnovers and getting takeaways. It was good enough for 6th in the Big 12, but again, it's something you need to see that number climb. If you can get to a couple or even pushing 2.5 a week, you're really humming. I mean, if you can force around 30 turnovers, that's kind of the gold standard. If you force 30 turnovers, and unless a lot of other things in your program went really wrong, you are playing incredibly meaningful football in December. If you can force around 28, 30 turnovers, that really matters. And then finally, third down success. Again, we had our moments, but it didn't sustain itself. We finished ninth in the league. We allowed a conversion rate on third down of 38%. You want that number in the low 30s, and that's where Zach Alley's going to want that number. So that's the holy trinity of successful defense in modern college football. It's not easy. Nobody said it was. Just like it used to be, holding people to 275 and 13 points wasn't easy, but those used to be your goals, and good defenses used to do it. Well, now the goals are, can you be effective in these three areas? Nothing about any of this is easy. But good teams and good defensive football teams, that's how you help out. You might win some games 45-38, but guess what you did along the way? You helped steal enough possessions to make sure your offense got to the 45 before their offense did. And that's by third downs, that's by red zone defense swelling up, and that's by stealing some turnovers. So that's what matters on the defensive side of the football. Comments before we jump to the offensive side, gentlemen?
I think that's well said, Jed. I think we covered it all there.
Right. We'll save the quarterbacks for last. Kind of bury the lead, right? But
keep people around.
Let's start with the offensive line. What's that?
Keep people around.
Let's start with the offensive line. There's certain things. First of all, it was fun to be back on a sideline with Rick Trickett, which I haven't been in a while. I mean, I spent a season as Coach Trickett's O coordinator, so I've seen him up close and personal in just about every way possible when it comes to coaching a football team. But his adjustments between series, like if you're allowing pressure through a certain gap, there's always going to be a reason. Well, he wants to immediately get down to the bottom of that reason right when the O-line comes off the field, and he does not want it to happen again. And what I noticed was, as you would expect, sometimes if they were dialing up pressure elements in certain gaps toward the veterans, we kind of passed it off and handled it relatively well. But there were times that you passed it off toward, or the defense dialed it up towards some of the young pups, and they didn't handle it as well. They haven't seen it as many times. So there was some leakage sometimes when they applied pressure around some of the younger players. And immediately coming off the field, Coach Trickett addressed it in his own colorful way. He gets through to his players. They know he loves them, which is why they listen to the way he talks to them, right? Because he's one of a kind. But the more importantly, he figures it out. He gets to the bottom of it and he adjusts. And that's what was nice to see. It's been a while since I've been around him on a sideline doing in his style what he does. And it was fun to see that again. And it was all coming back to me. And I was having flashbacks and memories, but it's very effective. It's to the point, and those guys listen. You do not see a Rick Trickett coached offensive lineman make the same mistake twice. It's not going to happen. And then from a personnel standpoint, I'll leave some names out, obviously, but Nick Cray was doing what you would expect Nick Cray to do. I think he's kind of taken a big enough step forward in this offseason and with the development he's had under Rick Trickett that he's asserting himself as potentially a leader in that room. And guys, I think if he has another year under Rick Trickett, I'm not the only one that might feel this way. He could turn into an NFL guy because Nick Cray has always been terribly athletic, incredibly gifted, and now he's learning technique and he's getting more polished in the mechanical side of the game. And he was pushing people around and doing great things in pass pro as he's done all spring. I mean, every rep that I've seen him take and every practice this spring, he's a fundamentally transformed player. So I just expect him to keep getting better. Malik Agbo, again, I love this new old Malik Agbo. He's back to that 300 plus that, maybe not quite to what he was at Texas. He looked like a different human being with these pictures I saw when he was 320 at Texas before he dropped all that weight to move down to the tight end spot for their swing tight end for the Longhorns. But now, he's pushing back around 300 bills or so. I haven't stepped next to him when he was on the scale, but I know he's put on significant weight. and that's what he needed to do. That was an off-season project of his, and he's not lost his feet. He's not lost his athleticism. I think he's a great player in space. He always has been, even when he was lighter, but more importantly, he has the axe to give him that push that he needs, and he's not going to get knocked around from his anchor point like he was at that lighter weight. So I'm excited to see what he can do to help us. Kevin Brown. Kevin Brown, again, looks like an incredibly physically dominant true freshman that's still a true freshman, because you sometimes see the domination in that part of his game. I mean, when he gets mitts on you, you're not shaking loose. I mean, get ready, because he's going to put you on a sled and you're about to be pushed and knocked out of the play and knocked out of the sequence. He's, like I said, from a physical standpoint, he's just such a force of nature. And he's managed to become a technician at a very young age. His dad's worked with him some as a former offensive lineman as well, and that's helped. I mean, you can see that in some of his game. But he's still learning. I mean, the freshman part of him is, I talked earlier about some of the pressure packages that were being applied. Well, sometimes even if it's a twist, you can see the difference between a veteran when you've watched enough football and studied enough offensive lines and been around offensive line coaching. A veteran, how calmly and smoothly he passes off a twist versus a freshman who just at the high school level, no matter how dominant or talented you are, you just don't see that enough. And it takes a lot of repping that and seeing those types of things out of a defensive front for it to slow down for you. And it will. Once Kevin Brown sees enough of that, it is going to slow down. And all of a sudden, he's going to become a player where the only thing that matters snap to snap, because the game slows down for him enough, is the physical side of his game. But once things slow down and he's able to anticipate angles, like when he's climbing, because when he's in space, he doesn't miss a step. He's so athletic. But once again, it just takes enough of repping against defenders with this kind of college level speed that's different than high school. And he should still be a senior in high school right now, getting ready for his prom. He shouldn't be playing college football. So it's difficult, but he's getting there quickly. He's getting there very quickly. Sometimes in high school, you could climb to a second level and seal off a linebacker by anticipating, well, he's going to be here when I take off versus here. And at the college level, they just get there faster. So these are all things that I would even say over the arc of the summer, you're going to see improvement out of him. But man, he's fun to watch. He's a specimen. I think he's going to be a great player. And you know, speaking of the young guys, a young guy that we don't talk nearly enough about, that I think has a tremendously bright future, LaMarcus Dillard. Nobody's talked about him. Nobody's talked about him. And he's a very talented young interior offensive lineman. But jump to the receivers. DJ Epps out there doing what he's done all spring, making plays. We talked about his skill set. We talked about what he's capable of doing. I don't know that we've had this much talent in a slot receiver in Rich's system since Darius Reynaud, even though he's a different style player. He's more elusive, whereas Darius was elusive, but he was strong. So he makes the guy miss, makes a big play for a touchdown. We've seen him doing that all spring. Teron Francis. Every practice, things slow down for him a little bit more. And once he can get to the point where it's second nature and he's just playing football, he's going to be special. He keeps showing flashes of what he's capable of, and I think what he's one day going to be, and he's getting there quickly. We got to see, finally, the speed from Keon Hutchins. Everybody has heard so much about his blazing speed. You know, he had an outside release vertical up the sideline, turned into a 50-plus yard play. I'm sure that there was a coachable moment at the end of that, because he kind of was so excited. He put the ball on the carpet when he was getting up, and it almost became a fumble. Trust me, there'll be a conversation with Coach Roth from that. But you finally got to see that speed. John Nider kept doing John Nider things. Had a couple catches. One of them did a really nice job of holding on to a contested ball in the red zone right at the goal line for what turned out to be a touchdown. Just really strong hands, John Nider. Great route runner. He's smooth. And let's have some love for another guy that we haven't talked about. Armani Weaver. That's a guy that we haven't talked about. He's very versatile. You're going to see a lot of Armani Weaver. You'll see him in the slot. You'll see him some in the backfield when we go max sets. So he's the brother of cornerback Kamarius Bomar, but he's a guy that does a lot of different things for us. And let me see here. All right, let's close out before we get to the quarterback conversation. I'll toss back to you guys with the running back position. We were hoping to see
Jed,
something. Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick. Did you mention? I think it's Jaron is how he pronounces his first name. Jaron Hewley. Did you mention him?
Jiren.
No.
Jiren.
We didn't talk quarterbacks yet.
Well, didn't he catch that touchdown or no?
It should be last, Wes.
No, I know he's a quarterback, but didn't he catch a touchdown, or was I seeing things?
I think you might be seeing things.
Okay. Well, then I apologize. Strike this from the record. You could tell how my spring game went. I apologize. For some reason, I thought he caught. I know he scored a touchdown. For some reason, I thought he caught that touchdown, but strike this from the record. Forget everything I said. Sorry.
Which touchdown were you talking about?
I interrupted. He scored a touchdown.
Yeah, he did.
He ran one, right?
Yeah. Did he run?
Yeah, he ran 160.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which touchdown catch were you talking about?
For some reason, I thought he caught like a screen pass and took it to the house, but clearly I was wrong. I apologize. That's you could tell how occupied and how much of the thing I got to see.
You missed it, but
I saw him in the end zone. All right, that's all that counts.
That's all.
Parts of it I watched closer than others, but I'll say that. But if you look at Cam Cook, we hope to see something behind him. First of all, Cam Cook, he had two carries. One of them didn't count. It came back on a holding call, and he made a nice run on that. But the one that all you needed to see was he got the football in an inside zone. It got jammed up. It was all clogged up on the inside between the tackles. He was pinned kind of in a phone booth between 3.5, 4 defenders and managed to squirm out for a 4-yard pickup. I mean, he is just so hard to get to the ground. I mean, that 4-yard run was an elite 4-yard run. That's all I can tell you. He is hard to get down. That should have been a TFL or a no gain, and he somehow squirmed out with 4 yards. That's all I needed to see out of that guy, but I've already seen plenty out of that guy. Amari Latimer, very bright future, as we know. Not afraid to stick it up in there, has all the physical tools to do so. What I like is his vision is improving. He made some nice things happen between the tackles on a few zone run concepts. He's still learning to lower his shoulder and kind of grind through the mess when he encounters an unblocked defender. Again, that will come as things slow down for him and he really starts catering to what God gave him. He uses it sometimes, but not as much as right. He's a bright kid, and bright kid or not, it takes a while for things to slow down and you just play and be the football player that you're capable of being. And that's coming from Amari Latimer. Chris Talley, we talk about speed being his game. It was on display. He busted a 30-plus yard run that was basically, it was on an outside zone that was basically him outrunning the angles of 3 different defenders. That's really all it was. I mean, it was amazing to watch. He literally just outran the angles and had enough grass to do so. 3 defenders had the angle on him, and he finally got tracked down inside the 15 or so, but he just outran their angles. And that's what this kid can do. He has blistering speed. He has a chance to be special because of that game-breaking ability. You have some others working their way in. Andre Devine, again, has done some things to open some eyes this spring. We got a transfer from Temple we haven't talked a lot about, but he's a big-bodied kid that I want to see what he does through the course of the summer workouts. And then, Martavius Boswell, junior college kid, has played at a higher level. And we're not done. I mean, we got a couple more freshmen coming in that can contribute to that group. But like I said, I'll take a break there. We're going to wrap up by talking about the quarterbacks. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'll say, I don't think there's official stats that came out. I think there were some people that were doing some unofficial stuff. So whatever was out there, don't take too much stock into this. That's the one thing I always say every year after spring games. A guy could run for 70 yards and you may never hear from him again. A guy may catch just one pass for 3 yards and he's your number 1 receiver. So don't read too much into that type of stuff. But I do like the versatility of the offensive line, and I'm kind of nerding out on this because I just don't think there's enough love to go around for the O-line, or there's never enough love to go around for the offensive line, especially with Rick Trickett, what he's done. But you look at a guy like Cam Griffin, I don't know how many people realize that he has played at least, I believe, 60 or 80 snaps at all 5 positions along the offensive line. Now, obviously, he's found a home at one spot in particular, but he's played all 5 spots. You've got Nick Cray, who's played tackle. He could probably kick inside and play guard if needed. You have Lana Livingston that could probably play both interior spots. You have Wes King, who could play guard and center. That really wasn't as existent last year in that offensive line room. You had a little bit of it, but I mean, you have Malik Agbo. He can swing from one side to the other, I would assume. Carson Cassidy, the UConn transfer, could play either side. I just love the versatility. It gives you so many more options. I think that room's deeper. The ceiling, the floor of that group is higher. And I won't go too much more on the receivers or running backs, but I just can't get enough of this receiving group because of how many guys I think can play a factor into this offense. Like I've got 7, maybe 8 guys that could see the field and do some things. Like I legitimately believe it's that deep. You've got all the names that Jed said, and you've got guys like Teron Francis that once it comes to him, he's going to be a playmaker here. Kedrick Triplett, where does he factor in? Cyrus Straw, who we talked about at the Open. Like everyone forgets him because of all the new pieces coming in, but does he find a way to get into this mix too? So I think there's just more options at receiver. I think the running back situation will figure itself out. And as Jed alluded to last week, there's going to be 600 plus carries to go around, right? We're going to speak that into existence here. The offense is going to be humming. Cam Cook's going to have 200 plus carries, but there's going to be 400 other carries to be accounted for. Amari Latimer is certainly going to get a bunch of those, I would assume.
And now, Wes, Scott, you have the stats in front of you. I'm curious too. I have Oliver, Niter, Hamilton. They all caught touchdowns. Do you have anybody else there that caught one of those stats? I'm wondering myself.
I don't have them right here. I think you have it though.
Okay. Yeah, Hamilton, that's another freshman tight end that when you hear Rich talking about potentially traveling 5 tight ends at guys like that, those freshmen round that out.
He's pretty physical.
And remember,
too.
this receiver group, we managed to do it again. We went through it and didn't mention Jaden Bray.
Oh yeah, it's a given at this
Jaden
point.
Bray's group. Yeah, it's his group. He's the Mac Daddy of that group. As he goes, so will go the rest of the room. But there's a lot of versatility, a lot of body types, a lot of skill sets in that room, Wes. And I think there's a lot of potential to do a lot of different types of things with those wideouts and those slots.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you said that, Jed, because I was thinking like, hey, it's funny. I actually am encouraged by this. We've talked about all these wide receivers, and we didn't even talk about the guy that we were most excited about going into last year. I guess it was probably Jaden Bray and Cam Vaughn, to be fair. But I'm with you guys. One thing, and again, I think Schuyler said it well. You got a grain of salt all this stuff in spring ball, right? I mean, Cam Cook, RB1, got 2 carries. So that was, and that doesn't mean that they don't like him or he's disappointed or anything like that. It means that he's clearly RB1 and they're not trying to get him hurt out there.
The other thing too, quick, Russ, before I forget, is these teams are divided up. So you're not going to see the starters all together.
Great point. Yeah.
That chemistry may not be there right now. Well, it's there, but you just didn't get to see it. So what it's going to look like, we don't know yet.
And so when you barely see Cam Cook, but you're still excited by the running backs that are making plays, when you start talking wide receivers from that game and you don't even mention Jaden Bray, that to me is encouraging because we all know, I mean, last year was rough, right? I mean, right off the chute, first couple games, you lose Bray for the year, you lose Jaheim White for the year, and then and those were kind of, 2 of your real big pieces on that offense, and then the hits just kept coming and coming and coming. And I think we're all confident that was a just tough luck fluke, the way she goes every once in a while, and that won't be the case this year. But it is football. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You're going to have injuries, and certainly seems like here in April, in much better shape to weather and navigate inevitable injuries during a football season with what we have in the running back room and the wide receiver room.
I think you're going to have more capable bodies if and when, like you said, Wes, like if you do suffer an injury to a starting receiver, a starting offensive linemen, you're going to have guys that are going to come in and play, and you're not going to see this massive drop off like you probably would have saw or did see last year at those two spots. So I think it just speaks to the coaching staff and the front office, if you will, of what Chuck Lilly and everybody, Dusty Rutledge and all those guys, Ben Kerr, all did to find those guys in the portal that can come in and help them play. Because like Rich has said a million times, like they're finding guys to bring them in and play them. You're not coming here to be the third string or to be the backup. They're trying to find guys that can play. And when you look at the fifth, sixth, seventh receivers, obviously we don't have that in front of us. We don't know the third, fourth, fifth running backs, but we have a pretty good idea what that group looks like, and it's a much higher floor for those guys than what we saw last season.
And well, I was going to say, mad respect to Wes for those who we were talking about this before we came on the air. He had full intentions of getting there early, enjoying the entire game. But when you have young kids, things happen.
Sometimes you got young kids and they literally don't give a poop what your plans are.
Well, so it ends up being there for 20 minutes because he had diaper duty, pulling up at the University Town Center. But being a great dad comes first, second, and third. So the rest can wait. So good on you.
They're just lucky it was the spring game, all right? Or else dad would have been in a little bit of a more foul mood.
So Wes seems distracted. You think? Okay, yeah, he had his hands full. All right. But
it was not my finest hour, but we lived to fight another day, baby.
And now, of course, if we're talking personnel and personnel decisions and scouting, you have to mention, and I love this, the guy's name that I spent the bulk of the first half, watching the game with on the sidelines, and that's Chance Trickett. I thought who better to pick their brain about, the do's and the don'ts and the cans and the can'ts and, his history with the Rams that we talked about, the role that he plays and what he thinks of this roster and specific players. And that was very insightful. And we got a good one as we've talked about on here before. We got a good one in Chance Trickett. He's a critical part of that personnel side of things. And it takes a village to sign a kid from the portal and to sign a kid from high school these days. It does take a village now more than ever.
They make it any more than Trickett's?
Yeah, that's right. We're still working on one maybe, but
yeah. You got any more of them Trickett's?
Yeah. Well, Rick's wife asked if she could get a job when he was hired, so, Tara was even asking that. Yeah, she was asking Rich. Rich was talking about that. But, so yeah, I figured a good way to wind this down would be in looking at the quarterback situation. Now, I'm obligated by law to tell you, I'm going to talk about the first possession of the game. By inference, that means, yes, Scotty Fox started the game. Please do not read anything into who started the game. As we understand, they shuffled the deck into two different rosters. This doesn't mean much of anything. So don't read anything into who was the quote-unquote starter, because the starters were mixed up next to backups and sometimes third-team guys. And now remember, Scotty came in. He missed a practice last week. He came in nursing a slightly dinged-up hammy, but he was still able to do some things with his legs. He did at one point. I saw him after he scrambled, or maybe it was after a possession. He came over on the sidelines and he kind of grabbed at his leg, and you could still tell it was just slightly aggravated. So remember, he wasn't 100%. It wasn't holding him back that much, but one more reason to keep that black jersey on him and not risk anything. And I think that Scotty and Mike Hawkins have both showed you enough for you to recognize, as we'll talk about here. But so Scotty starts the game, and right out of the chutes, they looked pretty crisp. He put together a nice drive, a scoring drive. Matter of fact, I think his only incompletion in the game came on a blown protection in which they had massive pressure leak through that A gap and right onto his lap, and he had no chance to hit that crossing route. And as an old quarterback, I can tell you, we view A gap pressure as kind of a screen door in a tornado. It's not going to help you much. I mean, you do not want to see A gap pressure on your lap, and that's what he was dealing with. He worked the quick game very effectively. I mean, there was a time that when he threw a hook to the boundary to Jaden Bray, the flat player hit that flat really quickly, and Scotty didn't miss a beat. He threw it low and away. Jaden Bray caught it on the ground, 6-yard pickup. That's how you coach that. It's a perfectly safe throw, put it out of harm's way, take it and advance to the next down. That's what he did. He read it perfectly, seamed the hitch, boom, there's the hitch. So anyway, he was taking his quick answer throws. I mean, there were a number of times I saw them throw blitz concepts at him. In one instance, they went empty, 5 receivers against a pressure package that Zach threw at him. He recognized across the board. He was scanning and going through this mentally. Okay, what's my best quick answer throw here? Well, I always talked about how many times you heard me talk about the rules a quarterback has in his mind: shortest side, softest coverage, right? Well, in this instance, the ball's on the right hash, but you have a tighter corner to your short side on the right hash. To the wide side, you have a soft corner where John Nider is aligned out to that side at Z, and he's running a hitch. So, boom, you take the easy hitch. You see pressure's coming. It's on you to get it out fast, and he got it out fast for a nice pickup to John Nider. So, that was a good decision on his part as well. When you look at the touchdown on that opening possession that he threw to DJ Epps, another part of the quick game, he read it against a 5-man pressure. Both inside backers came through A gap. They kind of crossed it up. It's a cross buck blitz to attack the A gaps on each side of the center. Guys, this is a pressure concept that's kind of a Brent Venables staple. His old Clemson defenses were known for this. He still does it at Oklahoma. So, of course, it's one of Zach Alley's go-to pressure concepts. It's one of his early installs. So we've talked before. You see offensively what the defense does all the time in practice, and defensively you see what the offense does all the time in practice. Well, this was one of those instances, I promise you, that Scotty Fox has seen that double A gap pressure a bunch of times, and he read it accordingly. He hits Epps. Epps makes a guy miss in space. Off he goes doing DJ Epps type things after that backer blitz as he filled that void, and it was a pretty touchdown. Fox read it, hit him, and the rest was on him on that opening possession. But by and large, I thought it was a solid performance by Scotty Fox. He acquitted himself very well in the pass game and on some scrambles. Wasn't a lot of designed quarterback run, just because A, he was nursing that hamstring situation, but B, he's already shown it, so why bother? And if you move ahead to Mike Hawkins, again, had the black shirt on, but he also managed to showcase that escapability and that ability to extend plays. I think that's a strong suit of his. Not only does he have the athleticism and twitch and quickness to get free from an ugly pocket that's disintegrating, but he can often get free and break to the perimeter instead of breaking north and south. And when he breaks to the perimeter, his eyes are downfield, and he's now maximizing pressure on the secondary and that defensive back end. And you saw him make some throws in that situation as well. It was something he did in high school. It was something he did at Oklahoma. And it's part of his game that I really enjoy watching him do here as well. I've seen some of the stats come out on that, and what was he, 5 of 10, 6 of 10, whatever it was, just like Schuyler was saying. Those stats in these games can be misleading. One of them, a screen blew up, and he did absolutely the right thing, threw it away. There was another situation where he was in a bad spot and threw it away. How many times have I said on the show that's one of my favorite plays a quarterback can make is hit the peanut vendor in the 12th row in the ear with it, live to fight another day.
That beautiful throw to Prince Strawn down the field.
He had a beautiful throw down the field. He had Robert Oliver for a touchdown on a nice read. You saw that was in the red zone. It was off play action. And what made that throw nice for the touchdown to Oliver was he had to feather it over that sinking safety who kind of attacked downhill and then had to redirect. And that's the thing about Mike Hawkins. Mike Hawkins has such a feel for the pass game. The thing about being a quarterback, and these are the discussions that I used to have when I was coaching my quarterbacks. There are certain things that if you haven't played the position, you might not recognize. Like there are times on tape that it might look like a quarterback is throwing to a guy who's not open because there's a defender technically in the throwing lane. And the defender might be aligned between the quarterback and the target that he's trying to hit. But in the pocket, you see different angles and different dimensions that someone who hasn't played quarterback doesn't recognize. You feel that, hey, I can feather that thing just enough. That backer might be sitting there, but he's not going to leap high enough to deflect this because my guy gave me enough space behind him. But on tape, that doesn't look like the wisest of decisions. But that's a feel thing as a quarterback. Mike Hawkins shows that all the time. He has that feel, he has that knack, and that's what he did on that touchdown to Oliver. He felt that he could feather that thing over the top. I mean, sometimes there's just windows close quickly at the college level, and you better have that feel and that ability to immediately recognize something because those things, the table is changing and it's not set the same for long. So he shows that, and he's able to do that. And again, he acquitted himself well. I think him and Scotty both played well. Both played kind of as you would expect them to. I'm still really excited to see what it's going to look like when they go live all the way because they're both tough to get to the ground. And I think some of their best football is hidden in a pocket that they haven't had to dig into yet. When they're truly allowed to scramble and extend the play and the defense thinks they have them and they don't, big plays are waiting downfield from both those guys. Max Brown, I'm excited for Max Brown. You can tell a difference between Max Brown this spring and in the fall, as you might anticipate. Things have slowed down a bit for him. His mastery of the scheme, his mastery of the system. Rich always said that first we got to teach you what we're doing, and then after that we got to teach you what they're doing against what we're doing. Well, that's kind of where Max is trying to get to now. And I think that his game demonstrates that. It's so obvious that he is live because he's a twitchy kid. It's a backyard scrapper that he's tough to get to the ground as well. And you see him scrambling and making some plays with his legs very consistently. He's a guy with some shake in the run game. He's demonstrated some pop in his arm in the pass game. And as I said, he's getting more comfortable. He doesn't shy away from contact. There was one play he busted a quarterback counter for a nice chunk, 15 or so yards up our sidelines. And Rayshawn Reynolds flew up from the corner spot to make the play. And Max Brown didn't hesitate, lowered his shoulder and blew up Rayshawn Reynolds and sent him flying on his can. And that kind of ignited the entire sidelines. When you see a quarterback do that, it really juices up the sidelines and energizes everybody. So there's a physical dimension to him, too. Nice deep ball on the outside release vertical. The timing was there. So, again, I think Max Brown played a pretty good football game. And to think that he's parked there at potentially number 3, I think we're in pretty good situation from the quarterback spot. But you mentioned earlier, Wes, Jaron Hughley. Jaron Hughley.
My favorite wide receiver.
Your favorite wide receiver? He animated the crowd.
I hope he ends up having a nice long career here. And like 3-4 years from now, we're still making that joke. Wes's favorite wide receiver.
That's right. Well, his first snap in the game, old school zone read. He makes the read, executes it, pops one off for a 60-yard touchdown right up the sideline. It's one of the one that's made the socials. It's gone viral from the West Virginia account. But the beauty of it was it was to the side of David Afogo, was the defensive end, the edge defender to that side. He kind of slid down as he's coached to do. Jaron pulls the football and off he went. You saw his separation speed because the safety did have an angle, but he outran the angle. It reminded me, it looked very familiar to me. So I put this on Twitter. I was like, I've seen him do that not just in practice a couple times this spring, but that's almost like his signature type play. Finding a crease, using his separation speed, and working his way up that left sideline. And I'm like, where have I seen that from him before? And I went back to the state championship game, the 1A title game in Florida in South Beach, where he had a big, long touchdown run in that game. So that's kind of a signature of his. And he does have terrific speed, just a gifted athlete. And on that play, by the way, I have to give a shout out to Charlie Hannafin, the wide out to that side. He threw a heck of a block to help spring him on that play. Now, later on, there was another situation in kind of a mucky pocket where Jaron had to duck under a sack, and he managed to slip outside and head up the other sidelines for a 15-yard pickup. So the raw ability is there, but the quarterback position is typically the last position for things to slow down with because there's so much on their plate. There are so many moving parts mentally in terms of what they have to do and their accountability to all the other positions. And so, I mean, there were some misgivings. I mean, you had one situation where he had an open wheel route to Chris Talley for potentially a very big play, and he missed on that. But that didn't happen. But that's going to come as it slows down. He'll recognize that, plant his feet, make a better throw. But the things that you can't necessarily coach as much, those were demonstrated by him. And again, we got a talented quarterback room. I mentioned earlier, Wyatt Brown's coming to town next month, and he's going to be added to this mix. And I really liked his tape. And the thing about Wyatt Brown, he's a bigger kid than I thought. He was a lot taller. And watching his tape, I kind of had him pegged as like 6'1", 6'2". He's taller than that, and just a good looking kid. And he's a dual threat guy, bona fide dual threat guy. So this is in this age, guys, to have 5 dudes populating your roster with this kind of potential upside. Yeah, we'll get into the conversation later, but how many can you keep? Well, let's start with hopefully 1. All right, let's start with that. Okay,
Find
because a
your
lot
guy.
of teams can't keep any. So we'll get to that later.
John Johnson too made a couple plays. I think not anything huge. He did have the one. I think it was a touchdown pass in the flat. But I mean, he is just an athlete. I mean, I'm really intrigued to see where things end up for him, because I'm not advocating that he play another position, but I wouldn't be surprised that if he does move to receiver at some point and he plays pretty well. I mean, he was going to go to Washington State, I believe, as a receiver. He was recruited other places to play at wide receiver. So
Wood Johnson.
Yeah. So if it doesn't work for him at quarterback, which I think they're going to absolutely try everything in their power to see what happens there first. But I mean, yeah, there's a lot of talent in that room. I think Scotty's going to hopefully take a step. Again, the big thing for him is to kind of get out of those young traits or those young mistakes that a youngster typically makes. And if he doesn't try to force the ball and try to make big things happen, I think he can take that next step. And Hawkins, I mean, from what we saw at Oklahoma, I mean, he can make every throw from every angle. So I think it's a really improved room. And like you said too, Joe, with Max Brown, I mean, we've heard about Max Brown a lot this spring. So to think that you do have 3 quarterbacks you really believe you can win with. Look, he repped 5 of them last year, hoping he could find just one guy to win with, or maybe even 2. But I think he's really got 2, maybe even 3 that he feels like he can go and win games with.
We're going to talk more in the offseason about what we might have in this room in terms of the potential and some of the plays that I've seen these guys make. Like I told you guys last week, there's a play that I saw Michael Hawkins make in a scrimmage week before last. I'll walk the listeners and viewers through what made that a special play, because this is a play that I've literally repped myself 2,000 times. So yeah, the fact that him and Scotty are up top battling this thing out and Max in a mix, and we're in a good spot.
It's got to be one of the most talented youngsters that they've had in that room for a long time. I can't remember the maybe the youngest 2 quarterbacks that were this talented. It's been a while.
You know what could happen if the kids organize and unionize, which is going to happen whether you like it or not, and they have a collective bargaining agreement. The next thing that comes in that collective bargaining agreement, because the players want to sign on it, just like they do in the pros, you're allowed to be traded.
Yeah.
That's part of the CBA. The players have to make that concession. You're allowed. So, hey, just think if you're sitting in a situation like this, because there's some quarterback-starved programs around the country right now.
West Virginia trades ex-quarterback to Texas A&M for a future first-round draft pick.
I'm not saying we're sitting here with 5 established commodities, but when you're sitting there
they're desperate
with 5 potential
hurt.
commodities, that's potential is more than a lot of teams have.
We need to make this like a wide-spreading NIL trade thing where you're like, okay, we got 5 quarterbacks we really like. Let's trade one of them to Kentucky for their power forward 6th man off the bench. Like that's what I'm talking about right here. We got this volleyball player that we really like. We got 2 really good hitters in volleyball. I think that's the position, right?
And you may
let's trade one of them for a midfielder for the soccer team.
I like it.
And you may see someday where Texas Tech makes a trade and they get a quarterback and they send cash considerations back to the other school.
Yeah, that's
They would. If anybody would, they would. Yeah. Old Cody Campbell throw some cash at you. Yeah.
Well, boys, this was good. I I tell you what, I don't know many WVU football podcasts that are doing an hour-long breakdown of the spring game in depth like that. But in a year where it wasn't broadcast in any capacity, television, radio, I think listeners will really appreciate all those details and everything. Good job painting the picture and kind of doing the best we can to relay all the information. Last thing I got just real quick is the Jake Owen post-game concert looked like it was awesome. A few thousand people stayed around for that. Ren Baker, brother, make it happen, okay? I'm tired of hearing all the years of excuses about, well, Mountaineer Field was built for football and nothing else. And there's this hospital across the street. Where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, and there's a way to get Charles Wesley Godwin at Mountaineer Field with 30, 40, 50, hell, let's even dream 60,000 people and raise a bleep ton of money for the program in the process. I'm just saying. All right. Jed also spoke to University President Michael Benson post-game and reminded him he owes us a podcast appearance this offseason that we have in the works. So maybe we can bring that up with the president, too. Hey,
I was
President,
down there with Hoppy.
Saw about 4,000 people there at a concert at Mountaineer Field. I think we can add a couple zeros to that and really make this happen.
Yeah, I was down there with Hoppy on the sidelines, and we were talking, and from, of course, 3 guys, but Hoppy, how many things did he do before that? 200. But the president came up and was talking to Hoppy, and I said, hey, you had reached out to us on Twitter that at some point before the next year, you're going to come on our podcast. And he kind of looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I said, hey, you've been on Hoppy's podcast. So if you want to go slumming, all right, here we are. Let's go slumming.
That's right.
So that is afoot. Or what is it that Tony and the guys say? We're efforting that. We're efforting that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're efforting that. Yeah.
Currently efforting, although we might have to make that closer to the opener against Coastal Carolina, since of course he was
good
president
point.
at
Good point.
Coastal Carolina. I think that was the Twitter conversation that started. I think it was actually one of my buddies that I went to high school with who went to Coastal Carolina, tagged in Michael Benson in a conversation that him and I were having about like him coming and tailgating with us for that season opener. But anyways, yes, a lot of fun things happen on Saturday.
I have our first prop bet for the 2026 season. You ready?
Uh-oh.
Pete Campbell sacks against Coastal Carolina over under 1.5.
Hammer it.
I'll take
over.
the over.
Former program.
I'll take the over.
All right.
Former Chanticleer.
Hey, vengeance is a dish best served at Mountaineer Field on September 5th? September 5th.
Yeah.
September 5th? September 5th. I'll see you there. This was a lot of fun. Great breakdown. For those of you that have maybe jumped on in the last few months within this kind of football season to everything we do here at ITG, just because spring practice is in the books now and things will be a little quiet doesn't mean we're going away. We'll still have a lot of great off-season content for you. We play Mountaineer trivia games around here. We've got some fun guests always. We've had Charles Wesley Godwin and Rich Rodriguez and Terry Bowden and all different kinds of people during the off-season. We'll continue that. We're efforting some fun Mountaineer guests from all different walks of life. Obviously, football and athletics, but some other sports and some other lines of life as well too. That we will not be going away is where I'm going with this. We'll continue to do. We might miss a week here or there where we're all on vacation and stuff over the summer, but for the most part, we will continue to have an episode every single week all throughout the summer. And then when we get into the regular season, we have 4 or 5 episodes a week. And things really get ramped up. But thanks for all who have continued to rock and roll with us throughout the off season. And let's continue to navigate this 2026 campaign together. But that will do it for us for today. So for the co-host, producer, Mr. Do-It-All, Schuyler Callihan, and of course, the signal caller, Jed Drenning. I am Wes Uhler. The one thing we ask of you is to be an ear and tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast. Take care, everybody. We will talk to you soon. You've been In the Gun.
ITG.
The fun doesn't have to stop here.
Be sure to hit subscribe and never miss an episode.
If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback,
be sure to follow us on X at In the Gun Podcast.
Join us again next time.
Until then,
Tell an ear to tell an ear about your new favorite WVU football podcast.
This mission is over. It's over.